Thanks for coming. I'll answer your questions for you.
Far left, we'll open it up with Lori.
George, I know you're a voracious studier and learner. What would you say was the center of your focus and the thing that occupied the most of your time in your off-season study?
Great question. Try to keep it fresh in my mind and try to learn every year. And it started when I saw the New England Patriots win the Super Bowl. And it's just about what's the common denominator on great teams, great organizations. And, you know, there's plenty of professional organizations, they just struggle every year. And the fans and the media, they blame the coaches. And you don't coach at that level unless you're not a great coach. It's not you just wake up and they make you a coach. And then it's even more comical when they blame the players. And I hear the term, well, he's a bad player. They're not bad players, but what's the problem? And that's why do some organizations have these great teams? Why do these certain companies have these great companies even during hard times? And the term we come up with around here is just they own it. It's theirs. It's their property. And I just noticed when Curtis Grant walks around here, he walks in this building, he thinks he owns the damn thing. And because he does. And he should walk around like that. And with that comes responsibility. You see someone treating it not nice, it's your home. So that was the central theme, and we're continuing that through training camp, part of it.
You guys talked a lot this past week about how much their off-season included extended endurance work. Would your team last year have been able to run at the tempo that you want them to run this year, or was this off-season and the extra work necessary to get them to where Kevin Wilson wants them to go?
I think that's a lot of times, you know, players just because they just finished it, you know, it was harder this year. No, it wasn't. It was hard. You know, I don't want to say I'll ask Mick, but it's not like that was a mandate sent down for me that we have to run more than we have. So I think that's simply what kind of team we have. We are going to play with much more tempo on offense, but I don't think that affected the offseason.
Front row left, Mitch.
You have a rather unproven stable of wide receivers. What gives you confidence that one or two of those guys is going to step up and produce to the level?
Yeah, it's one of the best groups we've ever had culturally. You know, they believe in the 4 to 6A to B+2 mentality that we have here, and there's zero issues. I mean, it's just show up, go to work, be at your body weight, and give your very best. They are unproven, but those kind of players usually turn out to have very good careers.
Far right over here, land of tens, Austin Ward.
Urban, there was so much talk last year about, you know, the team was a year away. You had so many starters to replace in training camp. As a coach, do you enjoy that particular challenge and building guys up more than, you know, having a roster with so many veterans back, or do you have a preference between those two?
No, it's whatever hand's dealt. I think you always like to have it's a little, you know, you advance more quickly when you have a established group. Like our older guys are fantastic. So, but it's not like you have a choice. It's just part of the deal.
Is there a different mentality or mindset or approach that you use when you have a group that has as many returners as you have?
Yeah, that's that whole 2,000 rep club. It's you know, we know every rep that they've taken during their career here at Ohio State, and you know, it's just that whole mentality. You know, football's a tough sport, and we're just going to be efficient with every rep, especially for a guy that's played a lot. And oh yeah, much different mentality. Not so much for the team, for individuals. So if a guy's played, he's been a starter for 2 years, it's not like you're going to see him get wiped out in practice and show us that he's a tough guy. We've already established that.
Does that actually help you develop some of the youth then, as opposed to last year, if you have to, you know, have some starters and find some starters? Does that make it easier to
Yeah, and every rep, that's like, it's always sometimes hard to get that second or third quarterback a rep when the first guy's a new quarterback, because he's going to take them all. And you remember that happened with Kenny Guyton. Our first 2 years, it was hard because it was so new to Braxton that he took up so many reps. That was such an amazing example of, you know, preparing yourself even when you're not getting the game rep. Kenny Guyton's legendary around here because he won games for us without getting the one-on-one reps. But when you have an established guy, it's a little easier to stick the other guy in there.
Front row, Bill.
I know it's so early. Is there anybody who's made a jump in your mind? Any position group? Any you know, young player?
It's too early, Bill. Next week we'll get you.
Try.
Far left, front row, Doug.
Urban, what did you learn or observe from Michael Jordan last year playing as a true freshman on the offensive line, and how would that affect how you guys view Josh Myers or Wyatt Davis or any true freshmen on the offensive line who are guys who are fighting for spots?
Well, Michael Jordan, if you evaluate it, played pretty good for a freshman, you know, but that's a position you rarely would like to see a true freshman go play. But, you know, there's three guys we're excited about with Josh Myers and Darren Munford and Wyatt Davis. Those are all want-to, try-hard guys, so we have no problem playing the guy. And Michael, you know, it's only, I think, the second one in my career that I've ever had that Marquise Pouncey and Mike Jordan had come in here and start right away.
And when you see, so on Michael, playing okay as a true freshman, what might that do for him now as a sophomore and the rest of his career?
Yeah, you can't, there's no price tag you put on experience. And we try to create that as much as you can in practice, but there's nothing like it. And he's doing really well right now. Had a great finish to the summer, and 3 days in, he did a very nice job. A little different approach you can tell from him.
Second row left from the Athletic, Ari.
Urban, you guys have been in, interesting recruiting situations where, you're involved with trying to flip prospects, and then your prospects who are committed are trying to be flipped from other programs. I was wondering, you guys, I can't even think of maybe one that you've had flipped out of your class. You guys have done a very good job of taking prospects and then keeping the ones that are being recruited by others in your class. When a prospect's committed to you, what is the strategy? How have you been so successful in keeping a commitment once you've gotten it?
I think it's our players, and I think it's our players' families. Why is Ohio State doing very well? It's a great place, and the culture is very good, and our kids love to go to school here and compete. And we try to tell them to hold off on committing too. A lot of the players try to commit right out of the jump, and you take your time, because those are the ones that often say, now I got to rethink this thing through, and they start taking visits, and that's just, that's part of the game though. And we don't try to be over forceful one way or the other. I always make sure, are you sure you want to do this? Well, I'm kind of sure. Well, don't hold off. We're not a very pushy program. Does that make sense?
It does. But there are times where there's maybe 3 programs in college football that can offer what you guys offer from top to bottom. When one of those programs, like Alabama, for instance, comes in here, is it different? How do you handle that when, it's one thing to say Ohio State's a great place, but there are a few other programs that are on par with what you guys have.
It's player to player, and you've probably heard of some of them, and maybe some of you haven't heard of those kind of battles. Just honesty is the best policy, and do the very best you can. Try to do. The recruiter has a hell of a responsibility, the position coach, and obviously me, to make sure you maintain a great relationship.
Far left, Matt.
I know you mentioned that free practices is too early to tell on players, but what do you in these early practices, you and the staff, what are you looking for? What does catch your eye?
It's all culture at this point. That's that whole thing, that go hard, because there are going to be plenty of mistakes. And the player that freezes up, and we have a saying around here, when contact is made, that means when you're in a game-like situation, you revert back to your training. The players that revert back to their training, that's the hardest thing for a quarterback, because they can look so good in drill work, and then all of a sudden you get out there and you can't hear the right guard misses a block, you get hit, and you lose your focus. Those are the quarterbacks you see really struggle in NFL, college, high school. The player that something good does not happen, he can go right back to fundamentals and all the training he's been through. Those are guys that play. So that's what I look for now in all our coaches. And as you start establishing depth charts, and we'll have a scrimmage this Saturday, and then after that you're going to start seeing depth charts starting to get materialized a little bit, and following that one, they're done. So they have about 10 days or whatever it is to establish themselves, and that's what we're looking. We're not looking for assignment expertise yet.
One other thing I wanted to ask you, I saw over the weekend you guys posted that you were at Magic Mountain, and through the summer, I know they did outings at Easy Bay and other things. How important? I know that has nothing to do with the X's and O's of the game, but the culture stuff and team unity. How important is that stuff for you and the staff to kind of work in?
Well, I think you've been around here long enough. It's called Power of the Unit, and that's 9 units strong, and that guy has to, before he can, do what you ask him to do, he's got to trust you. And how does he trust you? He's got to know someone other than the guy that, walks through these offices all the time. So we expect them to be over their house, get to know their families, they know their families, and do something other than, constant football. So you see us do that quite a bit.
Third row left, Dan.
Mike Weber looked like he was sidelined on Thursday when we were out of practice. Is that injury related, and is he back in practice yet?
He was jogging through. He has a little tight hamstring, and so we're just being cautious this early out. So he's practiced a little bit today, and we're easing him in.
Clay?
Are you going goatee on game day? No, that's not my question. What was the best thing that happened today?
Best thing that happened today.
What stood out?
We had 2 young defensive linemen that are on black stripe watch list. Not going to give you the names, but that was the best thing that happened.
You can't give me the name?
No, not yet. And no.
No, you're going to shave?
No.
Front row left, Bill?
Urban,
Glad
JT
Clay's
was,
here.
JT was talking the other day about, you know, as he's learned your offense and learned opposing defenses, that maybe there were times where he would hesitate because what his knowledge told him would happen didn't happen, and he was pump fake. Is it possible for a quarterback to know too much or think too much when he's
Oh,
got
sure,
back?
sure. It's a little bit of reaction because it's not perfect. And exactly, I've seen quarterbacks go through that. And that's why we try to do the best we can, given that situation in practice. And defenses, especially the multiple defenses where you know, there's no definitive, what's the word I'm looking for, definitive tendencies that we're going to face. That's the problem, especially for a quarterback like JT that's so smart. Alex Smith was the same way. You know, wait a minute, I thought we were practicing like this. Maybe a guy made a mistake. And so that's, you know, you try to do the best you can to give them those situations, but I've seen that happen before, and I see that with JT.
What's the balance maybe you try to strike then when you have a guy that's as intelligent as JT is, but you also maybe don't want to compromise his instincts either when he's out there playing?
You try to just give him as much nonsense in practice, you know, and that's what happens with, you know, Kevin Wilson and Ryan Day like to go really fast, and he's going to have a lot of that. And I'll just give this as a little detailed, but it's pretty good way of thinking about it. If, for example, in throwing the football, there's a movement key. If you're there, I'm going to throw the ball there. If you're going real fast and it's a real discombobulated defense, you don't do that. It's pure progression. That means you go 1 to 2 to 3. Does that make sense? I mean, that's a simplified way, but that's a perfect example. So if you go fast and you're going to see defenses aren't quite lined up, we're more progression-oriented in the throw game. That just simplifies things for them.
Far right over here, Todd?
Urban, the NCAA did away with two-a-days. Did that affect how you did things, or did you already
yeah.
cut back on that? How did it affect it? And then the two-parter kind of, you also have more days because you started earlier like a lot of teams have. How do you balance the idea of not hitting as much but having more days?
Well, I just saw the other day there's a proposal going across 25 practices, and we've had 29. Rarely do you use all 29. And so that's the biggest thing that we've spent a lot of time this summer. We have and it's different when you play a couple preseason games. We are not playing preseason games. We are in the Big Ten Conference Game 1. So, you know, sometimes I'll count those games as a chance to get guys ready. We don't have that luxury this year. You're in it. So I'd like to think that we've always had 27 or 28 practices. So that's why I moved it up when we practiced on Thursday, Friday. So I'm trying to get as close as I can to our routine. We know that you need that many practices to get ready.
So you're doing 28?
Right now we have 28 scheduled.
Are you at all concerned about guys getting stale
Oh, yeah.
an extra week? And what are you doing to avoid that?
I gave them the weekend off, so we practiced Thursday, Friday. They're going to practice today, tomorrow, Wednesday off. We're going to practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. So yeah, we're very conscientious. And my staff, you know, there's nothing worse than a stale, tired group. So I'm watching that.
And last couple questions, front row middle, Steve?
Yeah, Coach, we had a chance to talk to Jamarco Jones the other day, and it seemed like when things were kind of going sideways for your offensive line at the end of the season, he was a guy that kind of held his own, I guess. Maybe didn't have as many breakdowns. Just what did you see out of him down the stretch last year, his first year, and then what do you want to see in his senior year? How's he going to take it to the next
Yeah,
level?
he was one of our most improved players. He was a guy that that comment I made about what happens when contact's made to revert back to his training. He was a guy that didn't do that. That's why he didn't play very much his first few years. And he was the one guy in that offensive line that him and obviously Pat Elflein were the two guys that when there was chaos going around him, you pretty much could count on them to settle things down and do their jobs. So just maturity, and he's turned into be a heck of a player.
You view him as a leader up there?
It's got to be. There's no choice.
And final questions, front row right, Tim?
Urban, when you look at this team, the group you've got out there, and I know y'all haven't played real football yet this preseason, you know, pads on and stuff. Is this as deep a team as you've seen in a while? I mean, what is your just
Certain
your take
areas,
of the?
yeah, but certain areas were very thin. You know, there's receiver, you're not a whole lot of depth there of experienced talent. you know, the D-line is the one area that you do, so I don't want people to start thinking, you know, I hear that table, that you get labeled, boy, what a deep, we're not deep at all.
Yeah.
There's certain positions, the secondary, you know, it could be, but not
You're talking
deep.
about proven guys, right? I
Right.
mean, yeah. I mean, but do you see a talent well there that's,
It's too
when you-
early to
yeah,
tell,
too
you
early,
know.
yeah.
But I'll let you know, I mean, when we have these weekly meetings and all that, but it's so early.
you know, as you said, you've got 5 defensive ends you think could be playing in the NFL one of these days, will be draft picks and stuff. You still stand by that statement, right? I mean,
4,
4. Oh, I think you said 5. And,
potentially 5.
yeah, potentially 5. And then you've got Chase Young coming along. I don't know, is, in that realm, are you as deep as you've ever been in a position like that?
I think DN will be as deep as we've ever been at the defensive end. We're not inside yet. You know, it just depends how well Sprinkle comes back and other guys mature. But yeah, defensive end is, I would put ours against any group I've ever had or anybody in America.
And let's say, wide receiver, what does a young wide receiver, a freshman-type wide receiver have to do in your mind to get on the field to earn playing time? What will you be watching for from those young guys in the next several weeks?
Well, the guy that's kind of stepped up a little bit is Jalen Harris from Cleveland. He's kind of a playmaker, but he's still a very immature player, which is not a negative yet. It will be if I'm still saying that 10 days from now. But he's shown that he's got the, you know, he's got the skill set to play here, no doubt. Now it's how soon can he learn the offense and fight through injuries, et cetera.
And you got Trevon Grimes on I don't know.
Yeah, he
leash
went,
stuff.
he's not competitive yet. He's
Yeah.
doing all the run-throughs, all the non-contact stuff, and it's getting close that we're going to put him out there.
Great. Coach, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.